Hello, students, teachers, parents, history nerds. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nutshelled History, where we lay out the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We are continuing our Unsung Heroes series by looking at Charles Schulz and Harriet Glickman. On July 31, 1968, a young black man opened the newspaper and paused. His eyes widened. Something on the page stopped him cold, something he had never seen before. Tears welled up and spilled as he ran through the house, calling out for his mother. She came quickly, and when he showed her what had moved him so deeply, she gasped. A moment she never thought she would witness had arrived. Across the country, in living rooms and kitchens, similar gasps were heard. On that day, the beloved Peanuts comic strip introduced a new character, Franklin Armstrong. Franklin, who would be 57 years old today, marked a milestone far bigger than a Sunday laugh. He was the first black character in Charles M. Schulz's world of Charlie Brown, Snoopy, and the gang. But Franklin's story did not begin in Schulz's studio. TT began with the compassion of a schoolteacher. Harriet Glickman, a white educator and mother, was deeply shaken by the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Seeking a way to counteract the hate, division, and violence that had taken his life, she wrote a letter to Charles Schulz. She asked him to consider something radical for its time, adding a black child to Peanuts. Glickman had spent her life working with young people and understood the influence of comics in shaping how children saw themselves and others. Black kids and white kids never saw themselves depicted together in the classroom, she noted later. In her letter, she wrote, "Since the death of Martin Luther King Jr., I've been asking myself what I can do to help change those conditions in our society which led to the assassination." She was not alone in writing to cartoonists, but most declined. They feared backlash. They feared losing syndication. They feared stepping out of line. But Schulz wrote back. He admitted he was intrigued, but also hesitant. He worried that a white cartoonist might come across as patronizing, or that his attempt could backfire and cause more harm than good. Still, Glickman did not give up. She continued the correspondence, and Schulz continued replying. She invited her black friends to write Schulz as well, offering him insight and encouragement, and importantly, ideas on how to introduce a black character with grace and authenticity. It was a gentle, ongoing dialogue that would ultimately lead to a quiet act of creative bravery. Then one day, Schulz wrote Glickman with an instruction. Check your newspaper on July 31st. And there he was, Franklin, a boy like any other. He meets Charlie Brown. They talk. They connect. Franklin helps Charlie pick up the beach items he has dropped. He mentions his dad is serving in Vietnam. Over the next two strips, the boys become fast friends. Charlie invites him to come over and stay the night sometime. There was no drum roll, no loud announcement. Just two kids being kids, bridging a divide that adults had failed to cross. And in Franklin's casually mentioned father serving his country, Schulz made a subtle yet powerful statement. Patriotism and belonging are not limited by color. But not everyone celebrated. In the South, angry letters poured in. Some fans and editors were outraged. One Southern editor infamously begged Schulz, please do not show them in school together. When Schulz's syndicate expressed concern about the backlash, he did not waver. I remember telling Larry at the time about Franklin. He wanted me to change it, Schulz later recalled. And we talked about it for a long while on the phone. And I finally sighed and said, well, Larry, let's put it this way. Either you print it just the way I draw it, or I quit. How's that? Franklin would go on to become a recurring character. He sat in front of Peppermint Patty in class. He played center field on her baseball team. Schulz never turned him into a mascot or made him a symbol. He simply allowed him to exist, to be, to belong. Years later, Franklin's role in the 1973 television special, A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, would draw criticism in the media for the scene in which he sits alone on one side of the table. But Schulz had little control over the animated specials. Television networks were not the same as his ink and paper world. In his own strip, he made his stance clear, and he stood by it. And it all began because one woman asked a question. Harriet Glickman later spoke of her parents, who taught her to care about others no matter their background. That care, she said, grew sharper in a world where she saw young black children spat on, yelled at, beaten, and blocked from school doors. Every day, I would read about the dogs and the hoses and the courage of so many people during that time, she recalled. Her letter sparked a chain of courage, from a mother to a cartoonist to millions of readers. Because of Harriet Glickman and because of Charles Schulz, the world met a boy named Franklin, and the world was better for it.